Hi everyone. I'm Lucy Holmes McHugh. I'm based at the University of Melbourne, and today I'll be discussing some perspectives on the endanger listing for the Great Barrier Reef. First, I'm going to give some background on World Heritage for those who may not be very familiar with it. World Heritage is a United Nations convention with the aim to provide an international governance system for the collective protection of the cultural and natural heritage of outstanding universal value. It is also one of the most widely recognized international agreements with 196 signatories. You can see on the map, the green dots are World Heritage sites and the red dots are World Heritage sites in danger. At World Heritage meetings, areas can be added, removed, monitored, and considered for an endanger listing by the World Heritage Committee. Alongside the World Heritage List is the World Heritage In Danger List, which is designed to inform the international community of conditions which threaten the characteristics of a World Heritage area and to encourage corrective action. It is a way to frame that an area is in crisis and needs immediate protection. Dangers can be ascertained referring to specific and proven imminent threats or potential when an area is faced with threats which could have negative effects on its World Heritage values into the future. However, the endanger listing has been criticised over recent years as being subject to politicisation, being inconsistently applied, often delayed by years, and lagging on climate change policy. It is also controversial as many governments try to avoid their sites being added to the endanger list. Australia and the Great Barrier Reef has been no different in this regard. The Great Barrier Reef has been a World Heritage Site since 1981. Over the years, the Australian government has faced pressure from the World Heritage System about its protection of the Great Barrier Reef. In 2021, the Great Barrier Reef became the first site globally to be recommended for the endanger list primarily because of the impacts of climate change. The recommendation for it to be added to the endanger list came from UNESCO and its advisory body, the IUCN, but it was ignored by the World Heritage Committee at the time. In 2024, the Australian government was asked to provide information on coral bleaching and progress on climate change policy, water quality, and other threats in preparation for the World Heritage meeting in 2026, where it may be considered for the endanger list. So there is a real chance that the Great Barrier Reef will be added to the endanger list in the coming years. We wanted to understand the reasons underpinning support or rejection of the endanger listing for the Great Barrier Reef. To do this, we undertook qualitative interviews of 34 participants. Our sampling strategy was purposive as we sought to represent the diverse perspectives of engaged actors who we define as actors engaged in Great Barrier Reef governance through specialised knowledge, livelihood, professional interest, or governance participation. We aim to reflect the polycentric governance of the Great Barrier Reef by diversifying our selection across multiple scales to include local, regional, national, and international actors, aiming for at least one participant from each scale where possible. We also selected participants across relevant sectors. With this approach, we were able to capture a wide range of perspectives. Examples of our participant affiliations included intergovernmental organisations such as the IUCN, which is the advisory body to UNESCO, federal, state and local governments and agencies such as the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority, the Office of the Great Barrier Reef, the former Queensland Department of Environment and Science, as well as NGOs and community members such as the Great Barrier Reef Foundation, WWF, local marine advisory committees. We also spoke to leading scientists with backgrounds across climate change, coral reefs and tourism from James Cook University, CSIRO, the Cairns Institute, as well as industry representative organisations and businesses across agriculture, mining, infrastructure and tourism, such as the Queensland Resources Council, Queensland Farmers Association and Townsville Enterprise. Participants were asked an open-ended question: do you support UNESCO's In Danger listing for the Great Barrier Reef? Why or why not? And we thematically coded the answers. The most common positive reason in support of the listing was that it would pressure governments to improve climate policy, along with recognition of the threats to the reef, and that the risk to tourism was overstated or could be managed. Also prevalent were reasons relating to better management of catchment issues, that it would be a wake-up call, that it would improve the overall response to protecting the reef, and that it would lead to more funding and investment. But as you can see, there were a lot of other reasons as well. The most prevalent reason against the in danger listing was that it was not being listed fairly, as other sites were also affected by climate change. There was also concern it would harm the tourism industry. Others said that Australia was already doing enough to protect the reef. Some said the in danger list would indicate it was too late to protect the reef and governments would give up on trying. And some said the in danger list would reduce people visiting the reef and therefore caring about its protection. And as you can see, there are also a lot of other reasons as well. Some participants were unsure and did not know enough about what the meaning of the listing was. They were also unsure whether it would increase pressure to protect the reef or if it would have any effect at all. Looking at the underlying themes behind the answers, we found two key considerations that underpin perspectives on the in danger list. First was divergent perspectives on the impact of messaging on politics and public perceptions. For example, some believed there would be improved climate policy due to more political pressure, while others thought it would harm the tourism industry due to the in danger listing, leading the public to think the reef is too damaged to visit. The other divergence was whether the in danger list was considered an appropriate and fair use of the governance mechanism. For some, the in danger list is a recognition of threats facing the reef, and they believe the Great Barrier Reef does meet the criteria for the listing. Whereas others saw it as singling out the Great Barrier Reef for climate change, but not all other climate impacted sites would be listed, which is an inconsistent application of the in danger list. Our analysis highlights that crisis framing tools like the in danger list may be supported or rejected for a wide range of reasons. And this underscores the need for conservation decision makers to consider not just the technical basis for the tools like the in danger listing, but also their broader system-wide impacts and potential feedbacks. To reduce the risk of negative or unintended consequences, potential impacts should be anticipated and proactively managed rather than treated reactively, particularly for industries that may be impacted, such as tourism. And finally, potential benefits and opportunities of an in danger list could be better captured if planned for. Thank you, and I just want to thank and acknowledge the study participants and other people who helped with the project.